Welcome to week 4 of Jets Final Drive. I'm your host, Jeane Coakley, and as always, I am joined by the one, the only, my favorite friend, SNY's NFL insider, Connor Hughes.
Nicest thing you've ever said about me, Jeane.
I know. Well, it's a big day, Connor, because we're also joined by former Jets wide receiver and honestly my favorite player of all time, Braylon Edwards. Bray, thanks for joining us.
See, I was a little worried when you were talking to Connor. I said, hold on now, that's a little too much praise, but you said your favorite player ever, so you redeemed yourself today. It's good to be with you guys.
Yeah, I had to make Connor feel better because I knew I was, on with you, my favorite guy ever. So anyways, all right, guys, before we get started, before we start talking about the game, got to give you guys a heads up because Jets Final Drive is also available as a podcast now. So check that out and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. All right, let's talk about the game, guys, because the Jets struggled to get their footing and a rain-soaked loss to the Denver Broncos at home, 10-9. They're coming off a Thursday night game, so they had plenty of time to prepare for this team. They came out slow. They were sloppy. 13 penalties for 90 yards. Not the way you want to show up on your first 1 o'clock game at home, MetLife Stadium. All right, so Braylon, I'm going to start with you. As someone who has played in the rain, has played at MetLife Stadium, can you use the excuse of the weather and the elements as the Jet sloppiness? What exactly was it?
Man, I was so excited to get on here with you guys and talk about a win and talk about the things of being back in New York, but it's not seeming to be the case today. No, it's never an excuse in the rain. At the end of the day, you get paid to do a job, and throughout the course of the week, they have drills. Like, they wet balls in the garbage can, so they have you able to wet the ball, see what it feels like to catch a wet ball, see what it feels like to run as a running back or a guy running the ball with. We do this during the week, so that's not an excuse. It just looked like they came out flat. Looked like they had 2 wins in a row. They thought they were coming into their own. They started reading a little bit of the press script, and I think they really took Denver light. And once it started, sometimes you start in the game, you play bad. You can't seem to find that momentum, and they never found it. It was a sloppy game all the way around. The rain should not be an excuse because 70% of the games yesterday had rain in them.
And obviously both teams are playing in the rain. All right, Connor, I have to ask you, are the Jets just being outcoached?
Yeah. They were yesterday. Absolutely. And I've been one of this team's staunchest supporters when it comes to staff. Maybe not necessarily on the offensive side of the ball once they let go of Mike LaFleur. But when I look at what derailed the Jets against the Broncos, and Braylon touched a little bit on it, they played down to their competition. They were wildly undisciplined. They had extra days to prepare for this game, yet they looked unprepared for this game. It was a vanilla offensive game plan. And I do remove the defense from any and all criticisms because anytime you hold a team to 10 points and a quarterback to 60 passing yards, forget winning the game. This should be an absolute butt-kicking blowout. But the fact that this went off the way that it did, it does call into question the way that the Jets are getting themselves ready for these games. And yeah, if you want to know who the blame goes on, I do believe it is the coaching staff. And I know Robert Saleh is catching an absolutely ton of criticism right now, and I do believe he needs some of it. Heck, this was a team that had 15 penalties called on them, 13 accepted. That is unacceptable on a multitude of different ranges. But I do put it more on the offensive staff, the offensive operation. This is Nathaniel Hackett. Everything that we talked about praising him on Jets Final Drive last week, Jets class as well, it was about how finally to begin this season, it looked like he was not going to be a liability. Jeane, Nathaniel Hackett was out there coaching on Sunday against the Broncos in a fashion that makes you understand why the Jets tried to replace him this offseason with Arthur Smith. They failed to do it. They brought him back. They assumed that Aaron Rodgers was going to be able to fix the things that Nathaniel Hackett did wrong. Hackett's out there sending him into the offense with 3 plays and Rodgers picking 1. You still need coaches. Rodgers doesn't fix everything. And right now you have a better offensive line. You've got playmakers everywhere. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. And this offense looked no different than it did last year. That's immensely alarming, and it calls into question everything right now. And the biggest thing is that there are problems on the offensive coaching staff that they need to rectify now, or this season's going nowhere near where they expected it to.
Where's the identity?
Yeah.
What is their identity?
Yeah. They don't have one yet. I agree 100%. They don't have one. Look, coming to the season, Brees was the guy. You're going to run the ball through Brees Hall and you establish, like you said, you can't put everything on Aaron Rodgers. It's not his job to go out there and find a team. If we remember what Aaron Rodgers was a couple years ago, he wasn't necessarily that same guy that he was 10 years ago. So your job as an offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, put them in the best position. I think right now they haven't found their footing. They're trying to force feed. It seems Wilson at times. It also seems like they have this new toy in Braylon Allen, and they're not sure when to give the ball to Braylon Allen, when to go give the ball to Breece Hall. Conklin got off last week. Where was he this week? So it's just one of those situations where they got to find themselves. Running the ball is who they are. Everything stems from that.
And
It
Braylon,
almost felt like, honestly, they went into this game and they were like, we're a better football team than the Denver Broncos. We're going to beat up on the Denver Broncos just like we beat up on the New England Patriots last week. And it's going to end up the exact same way, that we are a better football team, and we're going to walk in here, MetLife Stadium, rain doesn't matter, and we're just going to beat the hell out of you. And that didn't happen. Jeane, talent only takes you so far. Yep. And when you look at this Jets roster, they do have talent everywhere. Hall of Fame quarterback, reworked offensive line. I know Tyron Smith isn't necessarily what he used to be, but he's still a starting NFL offensive tackle and far better than what the Jets have had in recent years. They've got a tight end in Tyler Conklin, a pretty good backup in Jeremy Ruckert. Receivers in Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, two-headed rushing attack. Why is it not working? It's because talent in the NFL only takes you so far. Eventually, you need to be scheming it. Eventually, you need to be able to help your players. You need to put forth a game plan that the players trust. And right now on offense, not on defense, on offense, I believe there are questions on whether or not the Jets are being put in the best position to have success, the best position to survive, the best position to win football games. I think they're questioning that. And unfortunately, when you start questioning that, it's hard to come back from that.
All right, and Braylon, I have to ask you because, Rodgers and Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers, they seem to be on different pages when you talk about the cadence of the offense. You obviously played in the NFL. You were on the offense. You understand cadence. Rodgers says the team needs to be sharper. Robert says, maybe whatever. What is your take on that? Because you were there. You were on that offense. What does cadence do?
Cadence gets guys in rhythm, and when you get guys in rhythm, it starts to become easy. Guys start to buy into what you're doing. The rhythm allows things to happen. I think this stems from in the summer. I know Aaron had to do something overseas. Saleh made a comment about it, and it seems like they haven't been on rhythm since then. And now here they are trying to play catch up. And what is week 4 of the NFL season? Got to get these guys in some sense of cadence. It doesn't have anything to do with Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers. It has everything to do with Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett, and that offense. They have to find some rhythm because it's not going to get easier. The team that they're playing next week is
How do you find
hot.
the rhythm, though, Braylon? How do you find that? Is it through accountability? Is it through coaching? Is it through what's it through?
I think sometimes you got to settle things down. You have to make things a little bit more simpler. I remember when I was playing with the Jets and Schottenheimer in year 2, we had a lot going on. We had Dustin Keller. We brought in LaDainian Tomlinson. We brought in Santonio Holmes. You have myself. It took us a second. And then remember, Santonio started in game 4. So it took us a second to get going rhythmic-wise. I think you just dumb things down. I think you have a conversation. I think you get it out the way. Just offensive guys. And you sit down, hey, what do we want to be? Who are we going to be? And allow Aaron to kind of lead that meeting. But allow guys to talk. Allow guys to say, hey, this is what I saw coming into the season. This is what I think we can be. Get it out of the way because there's clearly some things going on offense, and people have things to say. Let them get them out now before you get into week 9, week 10, when things are super critical. Right now is a great time to have that meeting, and I'm telling you, you got to get back to the run game. The running game is where it stems. You got 2 monsters, and you actually, like you said, Connor, you have an offensive line now that can protect. That's no longer the excuse. They got to run the ball, but they got to get on the same page.
And Connor, I know you asked Coach after the game, what is about these false starts? What is it about that? And then you also and he said, it's just we got to make it a little simpler. And then you also asked Aaron the question. Aaron said it has to be accountability. Is the head coach and the quarterback on 2 separate pages?
Are
there issues between the two?
It's tough to say because I think that it was probably a little bit of an example of Robert just talking a little too much. I mean, he said more than what he should have. It was almost like he was brainstorming in that moment and going through over his head of what went wrong in the game, what can possibly cause things to go wrong in the game. But the buzzwords that he had said, Jeane, if he just came out and said, look, we had an issue with the cadence. It wasn't an issue before. We got to figure that out and we're going to move forward. Boom. There is no headline on that. There's no questions on that. It's you go back to Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, Robert said there was some issue with the cadence. Why do you think there was an issue with the cadence today? It was when Saleh volunteered the information of, quote, maybe we're not good enough regarding the cadence yet. Maybe we're not ready yet. that immediately makes you say, okay, well, they're going to change something. And if you're not ready for something, and Braylon can attest to this having played in the league, if you're not ready for it, you're not going to keep doing it. You're going to practice it and then eventually bring it back, but you're going to dial it back some. You're going to bring it in some, reel it in some, work on the basics, and then you can eventually go to the more advanced stuff. When he says that, it almost feels like too much of an excuse. And that's been an epidemic with the Jets right now, is just incessant excuse making when this team should not be making the excuses that they're as good as they believe they are. When you then go to Rodgers and say, hey, look, Saleh, and again, I didn't say Saleh's exact words. If I had gone and said literally exactly what Robert Saleh said, I believe Aaron Rodgers' response is probably even more critical than what he actually said. But when Rodgers then says, like, hey, if you're not really ready for it, Saleh's basically saying he's going to dial it back some. And he's like, or, yeah, you can do that, or you don't take out a major part of our game plan. You just hold players accountable. I think there is maybe some divide. I don't know if it's going to if it's going to run a risk of splintering or fracturing this team. I don't know. Robert's going to say all the right things. Aaron's going to say all the right things in the coming weeks. What the Jets are eventually going to have to do, Jeane, is just win games. And it doesn't matter if Rodgers and Saleh are best friends. It doesn't matter if they're playing golf with each other on the weekends. They just need to come together and find a way to win games. And I think this all just stems down right now to a group of players who are sick of losing, who are ready to be a really good team. And maybe there are questions of, are we being put in the best position to have success? And the only way to know you're being put in the best position to have success is to actually win football games. And when you have a loss like this to a team that you should not lose to 100 out of 100 times, it's gonna call into question. It's gonna bring up some ugly stuff like this.
And Brian, let's talk about the playmakers, because you mentioned them. The Jets offense struggled, and they didn't find the end zone. They couldn't score a touchdown with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Braylon Edwards. You're Braylon Allen. You're my friend.
Braylon Allen.
All right.
It's interesting. I get it.
That's what I'm saying. Garrett Wilson, he fumbled on his first snap of the day. He finished with only 5 catches, 41 yards. Mike Williams, on the other hand, he's going the opposite. I mean, he's getting a bigger and bigger role, making great catches. Is it time to be concerned about Garrett Wilson? And should Mike Williams have a bigger role?
The answer is no. It's not time to get concerned about Garrett Wilson, but yes, I think Mike Williams should have a bigger role. But before Mike Williams can have a better role, I think they need to stop pressing. When you see an individual of Garrett Wilson's talent fumble on the first play of the game, and this is a guy that I picked to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL this year. This is a guy that I watched at Ohio State. I believe because he's not getting the targets that he's used to, because he's not having the success that he's used to, he's starting to press. And nothing good happens when individuals press, and that's what you're seeing out of Garrett Wilson. Like, as it relates to Mike Williams, look, I like Mike Williams in San Diego, then Los Angeles. The big thing with him is staying healthy. Get this guy involved. He can help your offense. His 50-50 play. That's what he's known for, the 50-50 ball and the big end routes to get yourself some yards down the field. He's a big play receiver. Get these guys implemented into the system, but don't force feed them. I remember we had times in New York when I was there trying to force the ball to individuals just to get guys in rhythm, just to make guys happy. You got to let these guys know on the team, hey, look, it's not about guys individually. It is about the team. The team is the focus, and winning is the goal, like you said, Connor. So get the wins. You can take care of everything else once you get the wins.
All right, and Connor, let me talk to you about the running backs, because Breece Hall had a rough day yesterday with a series of penalties. I think he had 2 or 3 of the false starts. I'm not sure. Drop balls and was unable to capitalize on those 2 goal line runs. On the bright side, though, Braylon Allen continues to look better and better. It's got to be the name, I'm assuming. Should Braylon Allen get all the goal line in short down back looks from now on?
I don't think it's as simple as that, Jeane. Like, I understand that he's your big physical bruiser, but, I mean, it's not like Breece Hall's a scat back. You know what I mean? It's not like you've got some tiny dude back there. I mean, the Hall's a force in and of himself. I think what's most alarming to me is that Breece just doesn't look like Breece to begin this season. And I know we spoke to Robert Saleh on his post-game day after conference call, and he said, you look at the GPS numbers and Breece still has the same speed, has the same burst. All right, and I'm a big GPS guy, I'm a big analytics guy, but I can also use my eye test, and something just looks off with Hall. This isn't a one-game thing against Denver. I mean, those numbers you see right there on the screen, the 10 carries, 4 yards, they're very, very bad. But he entered yesterday's game against the Broncos, averaging 3.8 yards a carry. Like that's not the Breece Hall we know. And I don't know if he's so Maybe this is like, a couple years ago where he's just fighting for the home run, wants the home run. It's like you got to get the tough, dirty yards, but it's like he's dancing a little bit more. Even when he's out, he doesn't have the same burst, doesn't have the same energy. Something just looks off with him, and I can't put my finger on it. You go to the flip side of Braylon Allen, and forget, I'm not talking about the physicality and how he's a different runner. He's a more effective running back right now. He entered averaging over 5 yards a carry. He was just as effective against the same defensive line that the Breece Hall was struggling so much against. So it's this weird little dynamic of you want to run your entire offense through Breece Hall. I was told by several people in the building that he was going to be the workhorse and the focal point of the offense. Well, the workhorse and focal point of the offense isn't working right now, and you have this other guy in Braylon Allen who, dating back to OTAs, has looked like an absolute stud. So what do you do? I think this is a situation now where, again, the Jets have to do what is best for the team, and they have to realize they are in a luxury. It's a difficult situation because you don't want to offend Breece, but if the hotter hand is Braylon Allen, ride the hotter hand. And against the Broncos, and for the first portion of this season, the hotter hand has been Braylon Allen. You're not going to stop using Breece Hall, but if it's clear early on that Hall doesn't have it and Allen does, they should they not force feed the ball, but they should continue to work Allen. They're not doing that right now. That's Hackett just kind of predetermining in his head what he wants to do, and I think they need to make those adjustments because that's what good teams do.
And Braylon, were you surprised they didn't use him at all in that goal line stance right there, that goal line?
To be honest, I was. It just looked like they were off on offense all day. Now, whether it was Nathaniel Hackett, whether it was the players or whatever it was, it just seemed like they were off. They weren't comfortable in the plays being called. They weren't comfortable in each other. They just didn't look the part yesterday against the Denver Broncos. So I don't know what that is. Sometimes, look, healthy competition, it breeds success. And I think that's what you have right here. Braylon Allen's guy is coming in. He's young. He's physical. He's hungry. He's ready to work. He's ready to make the plays. I think Breece Hall, he needs to lock into this competition. Look, it's healthy competition. Look, this is a guy on your team, but the better he plays, the more you should want to play good. So I think healthy competition is what we have here. One guy is just living up to the competition, and one guy just didn't have the best game.
All right.
And real quick, too, Jeanette, I think there is something to the teams that the Jets are playing, right? Like that's a real thing, that they are playing some pretty good defense. I don't think the Broncos are any good. I mean, I think this team's probably going to end up winning like 6 games this year. Maybe 7 if they're lucky. But this continues to go back to what do the Jets believe that they are? The Jets tell everybody that they believe they are a Super Bowl contender. They believe they are not one of the best teams in the AFC, not one of the best teams in the AFC East, but one of the best teams in the entire NFL. If you're that good, the team that's on the other side of the ball, good offense, good defense, good special teams, good coaching, it shouldn't matter. Right? Like, do Andy Reid and the Chiefs complain and get annoyed over the fact that they played a good defense? No, they go out there and they kick the you-know-what of the good defense. They have a coaching staff that out-schemes the quality coaches on the other side. In the opener, Kyle Shanahan, yeah, he's a phenomenal offensive mind. That's a great rushing attack. That's a really good 49ers defense. If the Jets are a Super Bowl contender, it shouldn't matter. Their coaching staff should out-scheme the opposition. Their offense should have success against the best defenses. Their elite-level defense that they believe they have should shut down elite-level offenses or at least contain them. What we have seen is the Jets playing down to their competition and using their competition as excuses. In the past, when the Jets had legitimate talent deficiencies, that was valid. In my opinion, I get it. Like, yeah, you know what? Zach Wilson throwing to who is he working with, or Sam Darnold, who's he working with? Yeah, you know what? Maybe they shouldn't have success against good teams. But they're not in that position anymore. Who do the Jets think they're going to face on a road to a potential Super Bowl? Trash teams? Bad defenses? Scrubs? No, they're going to be playing the best of the best. If they lose in the first round of the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs, if they even get there, is it going to be fall back like, well, guys, sorry, look how good that team is? No. I mean, look, Braylon, you were on some elite-level Jet teams, probably some of the best Jet teams we've seen in recent memory. When you went up against the best of the best, did you complain that you faced the best of the best? No, you wanted to go against the Patriots and kick the hell out of the Patriots, right? Like, that's what you wanted to do. There's this mentality, this loser mentality that I feel is permeating this team right now, that when they play the best of the best, they can use that as an excuse. No, you should go in there and beat the hell out of them. They're not doing that right now.
Can I ask a question real quick, Jeane, before you go? Like, you're absolutely right. When I played on some of those teams, like, that's the mentality we had. Like, hey, we played the Patriots and Tom Brady. We're going to rise to the occasion. You play the Ravens and Ray Lewis, you rise to the occasion. But we had experience in 2009. We made the playoffs. 2009, we got 2 playoff wins. We were able to go into Indianapolis and almost I know it only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but almost get chances to throw in the sheriff. We're put so much on this New York Jets team that technically hasn't done anything yet. Defensively, they've been in the top 5 of the last 3 years. But outside of that, the offense has been atrocious because of quarterback play. So here comes the year. Aaron Rodgers is here. We have Mike Williams. We know what Garrett Wilson is. We have Braylon Allen onto what Breece Hall can be. And we had Tyron Smith and a couple offensive linemen. Simpson. This team should do it. This is the team. Just because you put pieces in play in the offseason doesn't mean it's going to chemistry, and it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I think that may be a problem as well. We're putting so much pressure on an offense that hasn't gotten together, and they haven't done anything. No playoff appearances, no wins in the playoff. They haven't gotten it, and no big-time wins on primetime TV. So I think so much is put on a team that hasn't done it yet.
And you talk about the defense, because let's move on to the defense, because the Jets' defense held Denver to 10 points yesterday, but they weren't able to sack their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, not once. So, Connor, should Jeff Ulbrich have been more aggressive with his play calling?
I heard that, and I read that actually a lot on social media after the game, and people were critical of it. It's a loss, so people are going to be critical. Yeah, they didn't blitz as much as what they had in the past. I think Connor Rodgers was actually the one who was talking about it on the Jets postgame show. I was watching the clip he shared. You know, it was something like the blitz rate was 42% or something like that against the Patriots, down to 11 or 12% against the Broncos. It was a different game plan, but the game plan worked, guys. Like I get it. They didn't have the sacks. You want to have 12 sacks a game. Maybe the Jets played coverage a little bit more, but it worked. Like the Broncos threw for 60 yards. They scored 10 points. Like they had really only one drive that even threatened to score, and it was one that actually scored. Other than that, the Jets played lights out, despite the fact they got absolutely nothing from their offense. So, yeah, I mean, you would like to see them blitz a little bit more, but also what they did work. Like maybe if they blitz, it opens up more opportunity where if they hold that protection in line, a receiver's open and Bo Nix had, maybe they have 2 touchdowns now. Maybe they have 3 touchdowns. I don't know. I mean, what Jeff Ulbrich did, it was effective. It worked.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they didn't get the pressure, but they had the back end help with the coverage. So I don't know. I think it's barking up the wrong tree and complaining about the wrong thing.
All right, well, Sean Payton's Broncos blitz-heavy defense destroyed the Jets O-line. I mean, obviously they were without Morgan Moses, but Braylon, I'll ask you this. Should fans be concerned with the O-line? Or we'll go to you, Connor. How's that? Should fans be worried about the offensive line, the ability to keep Rodgers upright? Because he was hit a lot yesterday.
Yeah, well, the biggest concern that I had with that one, Jeane, is it was the 14 quarterback hits, which is like, whoa, and then the 5 sacks, which is really whoa, and several of those hits were of the big hit variety, and certainly one where, again, Rodgers was getting his leg worked on after the game, or during the game, was limping for the final 2 drives the Jets had trying to tie that or win that game. It was alarming because you don't have a 20-year-old back there. Like Rodgers can't take the hits and the pounding like someone like Jaden Daniels could, or Zach Wilson could, or Sam Darnold could because he's not as young. I mean, hell, dude, I'm 32 and I wake up in the morning, my back hurts. Not like when I was 20. Like it's like different when you get older. Unfortunately, I'm realizing that right now. So it was concerning, but I think what was most concerning was when Elijah Vera Tucker kind of made the comment about like, yeah, we can be better in pass protection, but we played our ass off. Like, okay, but what's causing the hits? And then when Rodgers, I believe it was after the game, made a comment about how guys, or maybe it was Saleh, it was one of the two was talking about how they weren't picking up the protection adjustments, that like guys were missing assignments with that. And that to me is a little bit of a red flag. Again, Tyron Smith is not the Tyron Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. Still a starting left tackle, not the one just put him on an island. You don't have to worry about anyone coming from that side. Olu's going to need some help as he just develops and learns and gets the snaps under his belt. But when you've got these MEs, that's where it's like, oh boy, because if you got someone saying, hey, slide here and it just doesn't happen, that's an issue. That's a problem.
You got outplayed. At the end of the day, like, you guys got outplayed. You guys didn't get the win. Hush. Yeah. Hush and do the things you're supposed to. You're supposed to come back and get ready. Look, I played for Rex Ryan. When you didn't do what you're supposed to, when you got to that podium, it wasn't, oh, well, this didn't work out, but we did this well. You don't point to things that worked out. You say, hey, look, we weren't good enough that day. We have to get better. And until they're willing to take the onus, they can't take that jump. And I think that's where you need a leader in Aaron Rodgers, somebody that's been around here many, many, many times. But do they trust Aaron? Do they want to listen to Aaron? Is this a spot that people can listen? Is this a spot where people can take constructive criticism? Because I tell you, it doesn't get any easier, Jeane and Kai. It doesn't get any easier from now. It doesn't get any easier the rest of the season. So they got to be willing to come into the meeting today and learn from the mistakes. They got to be able to be honest and look at that film and say, you know what? I let this guy get by me. You know what? My technique caused this. You know what? I didn't pay attention in film this week. I was a little distant. They got to be doing the things before, during, and after practice this week to ensure that they don't look like they did last week, at least on offense.
And next week, this coming week, isn't going to be easy. They're going to London. I mean, they're going overseas, the time change, and they're playing a team that's undefeated and a guy led by Sam Darnold, their old quarterback, who is having an MVP season so far. When you see what he can do, when you see what he's doing in Minnesota, are you guys surprised, or is this pretty much like, this is what Sam could do if he had the time, if he had the weapons, if he understood the system with a good coach? I'll start with you, Bray. Or Braylon, we'll start with you, Bray.
Sure, I'll go first. I'm not surprised because, one, shout out to the head coach, former New York Jet, Kevin O'Connell, my guy. He learned under Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, so this is what he's always wanted to do, and this is what he's doing. He's implementing an offense that is led by Justin Jefferson. You went and you go get Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers. You add him to the squad, and then you get Jordan Addison, who's a fellow Biletnikoff winner. That offense, it's an elite, skilled offense. Sam Darnold, he has time. He has a coach that believes in him. Look, when they were with the Jets, it wasn't the best situation with the Jets. It wasn't the best situation in Carolina. But now you have a coach that trusts him. He believes in him, and they made it a lot easier. So when you do that for a guy that's, year 8, year 9, I'm not surprised at the success he's having, considering the skill group that he's playing with. He's playing at an elite level. When a guy takes time, when he cares about you, and he shows interest. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles. Like, it's amazing what a coach can do. It's amazing what a player can do. When he feels like a team trusts him, when he feels like a coach has that confidence in him, and that's what you're saying out of Sam Darnold. He's just playing with the same confidence that he had in USC, and Kevin O'Connell understands how to use him in his offense.
Yeah, and I do think, and Braylon, I don't think there's a better situation that you could take a quarterback and drop him into than Minnesota. I mean, that's a very, very good offensive line. He's got the running back. He's got the receivers. His tight end's going to – I think Hawkinson's right
Hawkinson
or something like that. But he's going to be coming back. Like, I mean, it's just – it's the – and then, again, like O'Connell, in my opinion, is one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the entire league, where he just makes the job so easy for the quarterback. And I know the headlines that are going to be out there about, like, oh, the Jets, this is just the Jets. They had a quarterback. They got rid of him. I don't think this was ever going to be possible with the Jets. And again, we have to remember, too, the Jets weren't the only team that gave up on Sam Darnold. The Carolina Panthers gave up on Sam Darnold. The San Francisco 49ers were able to get him as a backup because 30 other teams didn't want Sam Darnold. The Vikings were able to sign him to the deal that they were able to sign him as because no one else was really able to offer him an opportunity to start other than the Vikings. It's like teams have pretty much had the book on Sam Darnold. I do think he's limited in some ways, never physically. I think he probably had some issues reading defenses and reading coverages and reading and reacting. Like, that was never his strength with the Jets. But I do look at the situation of when the Jets decided to move on from Sam Darnold, and I do think it was still the right call. I mean, they definitely failed him in the sense of they never put protection around him. They never put playmakers around him. They never gave him a coach like Kevin O'Connell. I mean, he was dealing with Jeremy Bates and then Adam Gase and a terrible offensive line, no talent. It was time. But basically, the reason why the Jets moved on from Sam Darnold is they evaluated him and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and all those guys in that class. They evaluated them all in a little bit of like a vacuum where they said, like, okay, say Sam was with all these quarterbacks. Let's get our scouting report on Sam Darnold. Let's get our scouting report on all these other quarterbacks. Let's give them their prospect grades. And then let's decide if all of these players were there at number 2, who are we drafting? Who's the quarterback we're going to draft? They felt that Zach Wilson had a higher ceiling and had more potential than what Sam Darnold did. So then you loop in the contract and all the other X factors that are on top of that. They decided to move on with Zach Wilson and move with Zach Wilson and move on from Sam Darnold. What Sam Darnold's gone on to accomplish with the Vikings, it's truly incredible. He's playing elite level football. But I do think this is probably more a result of a quarterback, literally, like I said, being put into the best possible situation with Minnesota, a situation that he was never going to experience with the Jets.
It's never about when. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeane.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, and it couldn't happen to a nicer kid. I mean, he truly is.
He's a great guy. Yeah, Sam is a great guy. Great family, too.
All right, let's move on to our final topic because we got to get you out of here, Braylon, I know. All right, guys, it's week 4. They're 2-2. They're at 500. I mean, but it seems like we're halfway through the season now because we've experienced the highs with the Jets and we've experienced the lows of the lows these last 4 weeks. Do you think if things continue if you see more games like the Denver Broncos games, that there could be changes midseason, or should there be changes midseason? Bray, I'll start with you.
Yes, you got to do all the changes that make sense. It gets
The
early on
Jets,
here.
I mean, sorry, Jets have historically not made changes mid-season. Just so I throw that out there.
Oh, we're
Now, when you
talking
say
coaching.
are you talking about? Sam, I'm glad you asked that question. I don't think you need any more distractions. I think you need to. I need to work with what you have right now. You need to work with the team you have. You need to work with the coach you have. Look, everybody's locked and loaded. This is the coach. This is the team. This is 2024 New York Jets. You just need some accountability and some. In fact, what Aaron Rodgers once said, RELAX. They got to relax and they got to take accountability. I don't think you switch coaches. I don't think you switch whatever you want to switch at this point. They got the players. They have the people in the places. Like Nathaniel and Aaron, they're new at this. I mean, not new. They're not new to this. They know what they're doing. So I think you just relax and you get into a groove. I think we won't be too jumpy in week 4. They're 2-2. They lost to the 49ers and they lost to a Denver team they shouldn't lose to. Throw that game out. That's a throw-out game. How do you respond this week? No, I don't think you make any changes. No more distractions. They got enough distractions in New York. They don't need another one.
Yeah, I think honestly for me, it's the Jets have never been a team in the past that has made an in-season coaching change if that's the direction that they would want to go. Now, if they were to get shellacked by the Vikings and then they would get shellacked by the Buffalo Bills and they're sitting there, what would that would put them 2-4 with a game against the Steelers? I think up next. I mean, I don't. Again, that will come down to how dramatic and drastic of a change Woody Johnson would want to make. In the past, the Johnson family has never made an in-season coaching change. I don't necessarily think that like firing or making these crazy changes with the head coach, I don't think that would make any difference, honestly. Like the issues that are plaguing the Jets, again, I know everyone's going to hate Robert Saleh and be mad at Robert Saleh because he's the head coach. I don't think it's the head coach of why the defensive-minded head coach isn't why the offense isn't working right now. Like that's come on, like let's think through this. Player-wise, though, if you want to take it that route, Jeane, I know everyone's going to want Devontae Adams. Like, again, you look at the Jets and why they're struggling, right? Why things went wrong. I don't look at it as a talent issue. I believe that this roster, from a talent perspective, is among the best in the league. It's not working because they are getting out-schemed against their competition. They're getting out-schemed against better coaching staffs. And when they play top-tier competition like they're going to against the Vikings and against the Buffalo Bills, who can match their talent, they're going to have to also out-scheme. Again, it's who are the Jets going to out-scheme offensively? Who? Because that's when they can out-talent somebody, they're going to win games. They did it against the Patriots. They did it against the Tennessee Titans. When they play teams that can match their talent, they need to out-scheme them. And I haven't seen anything that would indicate the offense can out-scheme anybody. That's been a concern of mine going into the season. It's a concern of mine right now. And I don't know what changes they can make in the middle of this year to adjust that in any way, shape, or form.
And also, we have to remember that the starters never played together in preseason, so technically their preseason's over after these.
Yeah, but we're a month into the season now, Jeane. That's why I gave them slack for week 1, gave them some slack for week 2. We're a month in now. Like we're 4 games a month in. We're through the first quarter of the season. Right. Technically not the first quarter because I was 18 games, but we're through the first quarter. Like now is when you should be hitting your stride, in my opinion.
Braylon?
Yeah, and
those are your final thoughts.
Those are excuses that they create for themselves. Look, you want to be locked in.
I made that excuse.
Well, it's an excuse. I'm probably sure they're sharing it. Look, at the end of the day, if you want to be locked in, you want to have rhythm, then you guys should be locked in May. You should have been locked in June and July, and then in August to September. So if you didn't play in the preseason, they're not the only team that didn't play in the preseason. A lot of other teams didn't play in the preseason as well, including a team that I live in the city, in the Detroit Lions. They didn't play anything. It's 4th game of the season. You got to be able to get to where you need to be now. They, frankly, look in the mirror and correct the things that you need to correct. They got beat man to man. Like, that's what it is. It was man to man. It was mano a mano, and they got beat. The defensive line beat the offensive line, and that defense from the Denver Broncos looked much better than the offense of the New York Jets. That's on them. That's a mirror situation.
All right, well, Braylon, thanks so much for joining us. Did you have fun? You coming back?
Hey, you let me know. I'm always here, man. You see what I'm wearing.
After a win. We'll bring you back after a win.
It's tough to wear this in the state of Michigan. You know, there's another school that wears this color, but I wear it for my Jets.
You got to get your Tigers gear on. I'm surprised you didn't do a show in Tigers gear.
What you know about that, man? That's what we were talking about on the show today, man. Tomorrow they're in the wild card, first time in the playoffs in 10 years. Excited to see Tarek Skubal, Triple Crown pitcher, first time since Justin Verlander in the American League. So I'm excited. It's a ride that I didn't think we'd get a chance to take, and here we are.
But I appreciate you wearing that green, the jet green.
There we go. There you go.
Oh, green.
Kelly
Okay.
green and white.
All right, thank you all for joining us for this episode of Jets Final Drive. And another reminder, Jets Final Drive is also available as a podcast now, so check it out and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. For Connor Hughes, Braylon Edwards, I'm Jeane Coakley. We will see you next Monday to recap the Jets-Vikings matchup from across the pond.